What's so good about having a Jamaican passport? The so-called power of the passport is calculated with the help of international ranking system called the Henley Passport Index. The Jamaican passport currently ranks 67 and gives visa-free access to 85 countries. I'm a Jamaican resident, but a citizen of Ukraine. Turns out a Ukrainian passport is viewed as more powerful than a Jamaican one, ranking 37 with a visa-free access to 137 countries. However, I would rather have a Jamaican passport than a Ukrainian one. In fact, I'd rather have a Jamaican passport than a British, American, or a Canadian one. With this episode, I would like to share the reasons why and talk about the real power of the Jamaican passport. When I began the research for this video, I was really surprised by the number of recent articles on the topic, and every single one of them had a negative narrative. Jamaican passport is worth really little. It is among the lowest ranked in the Caribbean. And it's true. Barbados is ranked 22 on this list, which makes its passport the most desirable in the region. Respect to the people of Barbados. Most other Caribbean countries are also at the top. But what's really interesting is that when people see this, they go like, yeah, Jamaica's no good. Instead of asking an obvious question. How on earth, say, St. Kitts and Nevis is at the top of this list? Not just among the Caribbean countries, but in the world, out of 116 positions. Great job, respect to St. Kitts and Nevis. But how did that happen? And another thing, nobody seems to pay attention to what is Henley. But before we go into all of this, let's make sure we're on the same page when it comes to the concept of passports and visas. Today we see the borders of countries as something precise, but in the past they were incredibly fluid. The concept of being under one ruler's protection while in the lands of another has probably existed since rulers and lands were first invented. Before that, humans could travel anywhere they wanted, but often they were killed while doing that. So the whole thing began as a document indicating a leader's consent to people entering his territory. Such documents were called letters of transit, or simply a permission to enter. The first known account is around 400 BC and comes from the Bible. In the Old Testament, Nehemiah was given letters from the king, granting safe passage to the kingdom of Judah to rebuild Jerusalem. Chinese Han Dynasty took it a step further and created a form of ID in 200 BC, which would not only allow a person to pass, but would also indicate the individual's age, height, and other bodily features. Anyone wishing to move across Chinese borders of that time had to present this document at different control points. So this kind of idea existed throughout centuries, and the document itself acted as permission to travel safely in foreign lands. But the adoption of the passport by all countries began only 100 years ago. In 1920, after the First World War and the Russian Revolution, a lot of empires collapsed, and Europe was facing refugee crisis. So the League of Nations, a body that was supposed to maintain peace, started pushing the idea of a passport just as a form of basic ID rather than a permit to travel. That kind of permit was now a visa and had to be received separately for each trip. Even at that time, there were already people who criticized that because it was less about creating a democratic society of world travelers and more about control, even within countries' own borders. Yet the idea persisted, and applying for a visa before travel was the norm for every single passport and destination. But of course it was inconvenient, and some countries began forming alliances to allow citizens only of certain countries to enter without a visa. So it's not like a government putting restrictions specifically on your passport. The restrictions are there by default for everyone. It's more like certain governments give an exemption specifically for your passport so you can enter without a visa. And since then, the concept of citizenship became extremely unfair. We don't choose where to be born, but depending on our country of origin, a passport may grant us an extreme privilege or extreme distress. If you have an American passport, it doesn't matter about your income or gender or race. You're more privileged than most people on this planet, including someone like me who was born in the Soviet Union and had no freedom to even think, because voicing wrong thoughts could be punished by death. But what is the current situation with visas when it comes to Jamaica? I've noticed that a lot of Jamaicans firmly believe that it's much easier for anyone to come to Jamaica than for Jamaicans to go to a different country. They tend to think that foreigners can just come and work here as much as they want, while Jamaicans need visas everywhere. The reality is actually quite different. First of all, Jamaican government also restricts entrance to Jamaica. Citizens of some countries will need to get a visa in advance before coming to Jamaica, even if they're coming on holiday. Here is a map. Countries in grey have to apply for visas to Jamaica in advance, and that includes Cuba, Haiti, and Dominican Republic. Countries marked as orange will need to get a visa on arrival, which costs $100. Citizens of my home country, Ukraine, get a free visa on arrival that lasts only 30 days. And it doesn't allow to work or anything actually apart from tourism activities. And the same requirements are for citizens of China and a lot of Western European countries. It's mostly the Commonwealth countries and the US that have 6-month entrance to Jamaica. But again, with no right to work. Now let's look the other way around, that is where Jamaicans can travel with no visa. Countries marked in green are visa-free access for Jamaicans. And that includes even Russia. The light green, like the country of my origin, Ukraine, you need the e-visa, which is an automated process. File it online and you get it the next day. Sure, those who come from the so-called developed countries would not usually need a visa to travel to most destinations. But remember, it only allows them to enter the country, not to stay or work. Now, Jamaicans would need a visa to go to these developed countries, even to go on holiday, in the same way as most other so-called developing countries. Here's a map for US visa requirements. It's only Canada that can enter US for 6 months. Countries in green can travel for 3 months, and the rest of the world needs a visa. As you can see, it's not like Jamaicans are somehow uniquely treated unfairly. When it comes to visas and citizenships, the whole world is unfair. And of course, this situation kept making a lot of people unhappy, including the rich and powerful people. As a result, from the beginning of the 21st century, a really strange phenomena began to develop. Passports are not just used as your ID anymore. They became a highly sought-after commodity, like real estate and fine art. And this brings us back to the company mentioned at start. What is Henley? The Henley Passport Index was developed only 16 years ago, so the concept itself is relatively new. The index simply lists the world's passports according to the number of destinations their holders can visit without a prior visa. The data is based on the largest, most accurate travel information source, the International Air Transport Association. And it's available to anyone on Henley Partners' website. But who are Henley Partners, and how's that relevant to the power of Jamaican Passport? Directly relevant. Henley Partners is a firm in London which developed the concept of residence and citizenship planning in the 1990s. Considering the problems discussed earlier in this video, and as globalization was expanding, residence and citizenship became topics of significant interest among the increasing number of internationally mobile entrepreneurs and investors. Currently, each year, hundreds of wealthy individuals and their advisors rely on the expertise of this particular firm, Henley Partners. In simple words, this company helps wealthy people to buy passports, citizenships, and residences in different countries. The Henley Passport Index is initially designed for these wealthy people who are considering alternative citizenship, aka one more passport. I can become a resident of the UK with the right to live, work and study there, provided I have £2 million. You can buy your residence in the United States as well for even less money, just $500,000 US. And you can buy residence in Canada with 1.2 million Canadian dollars. But no matter how much money you have, you cannot buy a Jamaican passport or Jamaican residence. It's just not for sale, and Jamaica as a whole doesn't have an immigration program. So to become a resident or a citizen, you either need to have some relatives from Jamaica, or you have to be married to a Jamaican, or you need to get a work permit first, then spend several years working, and only then you would have the right to apply for residence. So the whole process usually takes about 4 years. It took me 6.5 years. I have a video on my channel about how to move to Jamaica. Feel free to check it out. But the point is, while the rest of the world, especially countries with highly developed economies, are fighting to get skilled migrants and investors, Jamaica is rather protective and often loses its highly skilled individuals. Now, this is a real issue, and I will be talking more about it in the documentary Who Owns Jamaica, to discuss the influence of foreign investors on Jamaican economy and society as a whole. So if you don't want to miss that video when it comes out, please make sure to check the bell notification and please subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. Buying a passport of a different country legally is called citizenship by investment. This idea was pioneered by Christian Cullen, who, like many people, believed that citizenship was inherently unjust. Together with his team, he made an attempt to solve that problem. He's a prominent Swiss lawyer and also the author and chairman of Henley Partners. In order to achieve that goal, their company took the whole situation a step further. They began working with the governments of countries directly. For example, in 2007, Mr. Cullen worked with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis to reform their citizenship by investment program.
Of course, it's my particular pleasure also to welcome a few very special guests, among them the Prime Minister of Malta, the Honourable Joseph Muscat, and the Premier of Nevis, the Honourable Vance Emery.
As a result, if you look at historical ranking for St. Kitts and Nevis on the list, it was 40th in 2006, about the same as Jamaica in that year. And now St. Kitts and Nevis is 24th with 157 visa-free destinations. So anyone can invest just $150,000 directly into St. Kitts and Nevis and get this powerful passport in return. But here is the thing, do you really think that wealthy people want to get that passport so that they can get a visa-free access to go on holiday? Come on, guys. Who cares about visas for holidays? If you have the time and money to travel around the world, getting a visa is actually easier than finding a convenient layover at airports. The real power of the passport of St. Kitts and Nevis and some other Caribbean countries at the top of the list has nothing to do with visa-free access around the world and everything to do with zero tax and offshore banking services. If you are a wealthy person, becoming a citizen of CARICOM makes things much more convenient because it provides asset protection, security, confidentiality. It's great for personal finances and your business. At the same time, the more investments are coming from rich and powerful foreigners to the Caribbean country, the more likely that country is going to get all the bonuses from the country of origins of their newly formed citizens. One of these bonuses is a visa-free access due to the relationship between the governments. Jamaican Passport allows visa-free access to about the same number of countries as it used to do before. But the reason its rating is falling is because other countries were able to form different connections with each other, which pushed them in front of Jamaica. So the actual reason why Jamaican Passport is among the lowest ranked in the Caribbean is not because there is something wrong with Jamaica, but because Jamaica doesn't provide offshore banking services or citizenship by investment, while some other CARICOM countries do. So their passports allow visa-free access to all of these destinations, not because the destinations are worried about the mobility of people who were born in Lesser Antilles. These bonus came into existence because of those new citizens. Regardless, though, it's a huge contribution to the economy of CARICOM countries, and as a side effect, it gives a lot of benefits to the people who were born there. So the visa-free access is given because the passport is powerful, not the other way around, that the passport is powerful because of visa-free access. Do you see the difference? Interesting to note, though, Barbados passport has the highest rank in the Caribbean, but Barbados doesn't have a citizenship by investment program, so getting their passport is just as difficult as a Jamaican one, which means if you want to compare Caribbean passports, the most powerful one is actually St. Kitts and Nevis, which allows you to live anywhere in the Caribbean, including Barbados, but without a hassle. Now let's see the real power of the Jamaican passport. A passport is much more than just a document to travel to other countries. The most important is that passport certifies your identity and citizenship, which in turn gives you rights. It is about person's freedom and often an access to a better way of life. However, there is no such thing as a universal power of a passport, because it all depends on your specific needs. The index only shows visa-free access for tourism and business trips. But what about study, work, or living in a certain country? Japan holds the top rank with visa-free access to 193 destinations, and its passport is viewed as the most powerful in the world. But its power ends as soon as you come to the Caribbean, because Japanese passport would only allow you to stay in Jamaica for 30 days with no right to study or work. I want to live in Jamaica and run my business here, as well as other Caribbean countries. And for that, a CARICOM passport would be the most powerful, not a Japanese one, or American, or Ukrainian. I don't care how many countries I can visit without a visa, because that's not what I'm trying to accomplish. And it's not something that influences my everyday life. But if I want to create a project within a tourism industry and keep my head office in the biggest English-speaking Caribbean country, then the most powerful passport I can ever get is a Jamaican one. And of course, the holders of the Jamaican passport are not only nationals of Jamaica, they are also nationals of CARICOM, because Jamaica is one of the member states. CARICOM consists of 20 countries. There are 15 CARICOM member states and 5 associate members. 12 of these countries have issued the CARICOM passport. Just like in the European Union, where people can travel, work and study within these countries, CARICOM offers a lot of benefits for Caribbean people. For example, with one Jamaican passport, a person can live in 12 countries. And not just any countries, but the ones that are most sought after tourism destinations, dream retirement destinations, and offshore banking destinations. All of this is possible if you have a CARICOM skills certificate, which is easy to get if you are a skilled person. Here is a long list of people who can apply for this certificate, and the contact information for offices where you can apply for it if you are a citizen of these 12 member states. Just to make it clear, as an example, if I want to run a business in Barbados or get a job there as a non-CARICOM national, I would have to get a work permit, and to do that, I would first have to prove I have an income of $50,000 per year, provide the whole package of documents, and the whole process to get that stamp costs $2,000 for a single person. But if I was a holder of a Jamaican passport, I wouldn't have needed a work permit for Barbados. I would only need CARICOM skills certificate, and then I could come to Barbados and stay there indefinitely. The same works the other way around if somebody wants to come from Barbados to Jamaica. So even if we don't consider the patriotic side of it, like it's awesome to have a Jamaican passport because of the impact Jamaica has on the world, but just the practical side. The Jamaican passport is the passport of the largest English-speaking Caribbean country with a lot of potential and business opportunities. It also gives an access to CARICOM single market and economy, which is a perfect choice for someone who wants to move and live freely in the whole of the Caribbean. The problem is, though, that very often the only people who can get the advantage from having a Jamaican passport are the ones who know about their rights, who understand how to use the benefits that come with a passport, skilled professionals, people who are seeking to become the best at what they do. You see, rich people know how to use the law in order to get what they want and make the most of it. Citizenship by investment is just one of those things. The Henley Passport Index is there to simply share how many countries you can enter visa-free with a certain passport if you wish to go on holiday or on a business trip. However, their index does not represent the actual power of the passport. It's kind of sad to see how some Jamaicans complain about the Jamaican passport not being worth much. If only I had one from a developed country. While those in the developed countries are ready to spend thousands of dollars only to get the CARICOM passport that Jamaicans get by default without having to put any effort. As a permanent resident in Jamaica, I would personally love to apply for a Jamaican citizenship and passport, but the problem is, I'm a Ukrainian citizen, and Ukraine does not allow dual citizenship, which means by Ukrainian law, it's illegal for me to apply for a Jamaican passport. This might change soon, but until then, just like the chairman of Henley and Partners said, citizenship is inherently unjust. Thank you so much for watching. Big thanks to now 39 patrons. They are the people who made this video possible. If you like my work, you can also support this project on Patreon from only $5 per month. And special thanks are always to our top tier patrons, Kelly and Trevor, for their continued support. My name is Irina, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.